This is going to be an official e-discovery after hours. Are you excited about that? I'm kind of excited about.
I've never watched it.
I know that's the problem. So this is why we make clips, because people watch the clips. You've seen a clip or two, right? No, you're not even on LinkedIn, really.
I have
We're gonna
not.
fix that.
I am on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn.
Okay.
I just don't use it for other than our due diligence checks when we hire contract attorneys. But
Fair enough.
I have the official Proteus background. I have my
good.
Proteus headshot.
All right.
It's all. I'll need to ask ChatGPT how to boost my presence on LinkedIn.
We can do that. That's a whole nother episode. With that lovely intro of how we're not fully on LinkedIn, this is Sarah Barth.
Hello.
Director of Managed Review here at Proteus, and I decided that I'm going to pick her brain, and we're going to get all of the secrets out of her on how to conduct a successful managed review. Because no matter how many times an attorney worries about collecting a cell phone and the price, or no matter how many times they wrestle me from $7 a gig down to $5 a gig to host data, that is a drop in the bucket on the managed review, the review costs in general. And so I think what I'm seeing is way too many attorneys are not using wonderful folks like yourself, but kicking the can down the road month after month, and then trying to throw a bunch of law firm associates at a review. And Lord knows what happens when that goes down. And it gets sideways real quick.
True. All true.
Yes. So here's my theory. We're going to talk about all the secrets. We're going to make you tell us everything that you do to make these things go wonderful. We're going to give it all away.
Okay.
And we're going to help these wonderful people do better on their managed reviews. So let's start by why don't you tell me a little bit about your background? What got you to be the director of managed review at Proteus?
So being an attorney is actually my third career.
Oh, I like that.
So I know that I'm supposed to be here because I tried all the other things first. I went to law school late. I went to law school in my 30s. So I was in law school with, all of the 2008 crash kids.
Nice.
Who just stayed in school forever. So I intentionally went back to school to get my law degree. I used to be a litigator, so I did family law and land use and a bunch of other things. And then had a background. I worked for a startup company right out of law school where we did large-scale contract review. And so I got to build their QC program. I got to build their professional mentorship program, all of those things, and then did that for about 2.5 years. And then I worked for a competitor who shall remain unnamed.
It happens. It's okay. It's all good. We forgive you.
I did class action settlement administration at the project attorney and then project manager level for almost 3 years, working primarily with financial institutions. And then decided to leave that and went back to litigation. And then did not enjoy family law. Surprise, surprise. So thought, okay, well, I have this project management background, I have this doc review background. What else is out there where I can kind of leverage those two things? Because there were a lot of aspects of both of those that I loved. And so found Proteus and started working for Proteus 4 years ago, actually. And then came on actually as a contract review attorney. And then immediately the project management team was like, hold on a second. We need you.
Yeah.
So joined the project management team, and then over the next, 1.5, 2 years, just rose through the company to director of managed review. And so that's my elevator pitch for how I got here.
I love it. That's fantastic. I like that you kind of worked your way up and you started, I started in the industry pulling staples was my first gig. And then when I got hired at a law firm, I was supposed to be a scanner.
Mm-hmm.
And
I did that at a law firm too.
Did
when
you?
I was in law school. Yeah.
And I spent like 2 weeks there talking to people and scanning my documents and getting to know folks. And I realized, I was like, wow, we're a little behind here. I was like, I either need to be the manager or move on here pretty quickly. And luckily, they let me, kind of like you at Proteus, they let me be the manager, and I got to be the lit sport manager at a law firm. So I kind of have a little bit of this similar background there,
Yeah.
and like saying, all right, wait a minute, we got to do better. So I want to know one thing about a manager review that kind of drives you crazy, that you see going on in the middle of a manager review, or maybe even one that when folks choose to not use a manager review team, that drives you a little
Sure.
bananas.
So I would say it actually starts much earlier than being in the midst of the document review, and how you talked about earlier. It's that kind of kick the can down the road, and then all of a sudden your deadline is looming and you don't know what to do, and it's sort of panic, a very reactive approach to it. So I would say the thing that drives me the most nuts is not engaging with us early in the process. So particularly because on my team, we are litigators, we are former litigators, we're all attorneys. And so we have the ability to kind of wear both of those hats. So we can wear the litigator hat and we can wear the managed review hat. And we really want to partner with you, and we're not just your vendor. We really want to partner with you to have you be successful. And so one of the ways that we can do that is, as soon as you're talking about collections, as soon as you're talking about custodial interviews, you get your RFPs. So each stage of that process, consulting with us, having some dialogue with us around, when I review the RFPs, what do I see that is potentially something that you're going to want to push back on, or at least consider in your litigation process. So I would say just that early engagement doesn't happen enough.
Yeah, I agree. And I had this conversation with a client this week, and maybe you can help me respond to him, because I have somebody that said, well, we don't really know the search terms yet. We don't really have an idea of what they're going to ask for yet. We don't, all these, I don't know. And we have this data sitting there. And so, like, my thought process is, couldn't you jump into the data a little bit, maybe run a few searches, have a handful of people look at the documents, and then you get an idea of how you might want to go respond or couch your argument to see exactly what you can get them to agree to, and be proactive about those meetings. Or am I crazy? Is that just not how it works? Or should we wait?
No. You're absolutely on the right track. And I would even add to that. So that sort of early case analysis is what we're talking about when we're saying, like, here's a data set sitting there. What's in it? It is not just figuring out how many documents you have and what types of documents you have, but the contents. Most people are going to go search term. Like, that's sort of the first step in the process. And it is, it's a good step. We all take it. But everyone also knows, with respect to search terms, they're contentious. Parties have a hard time agreeing to them, and it's sort of garbage in, garbage out is what everyone says about search terms. And so I would go a step further and say, yes, that is an excellent place to start, at least to begin to get a handle on what is in your document corpus. But there are a lot of underutilized tools within whichever review platform you want to use, that we refer to as conceptual analytics. And so that is a really fantastic way to get an even better view of what is in your document corpus. So clustering is like one of my favorite things, because you don't have to know anything about your document population going into it, and it is going to group the documents for you, and then you can begin to kind of drill down into subpopulations. Can help you not only what you were describing in terms of how do you want to interact with opposing counsel, how do you want to maybe push back, or where do you know that you're going to need to concede, or where do you have some risk exposure. But it also helps you prioritize things like, what are my search terms going to be? What do I know I need to have? What do I want to get reviewed early in the process, whether that is counsel just kind of digging in to get an early handle on the case, or it is actually a review team prioritizing what documents need to get pushed to review. It then also helps you on the back end when you're doing QC, because you can see if you have a lot of relevant documents in a cluster, but then you've got some outliers that were coded incorrectly. So those tools are, again, underutilized, but they're so helpful for the duration of a project, whether it's early case analysis, review, QC. You can leverage those in any one of those stages to great advantage.
Just being selfish for a second.
Sure.
This is all of a sudden going to be about me. Sorry. But like, how do I talk to somebody that's an attorney and convey that need to them early on to say, this is super helpful information to build your case, to understand what you're going to go negotiate. Like when I'm saying that 80 to 90% of the folks I talk to say, well, we got to go negotiate all this stuff first. And then we'll come back to you with search terms or our process or whatever. And like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, what's if you fail to plan, you plan to fail? Like, that feels like it falls in that category, right?
No, it does. I mean, my take on it is, I think that, inherently attorneys don't love change. So that's going to be a hurdle, just sort of built into it. As an attorney, I feel comfortable saying that. We don't like change. We're risk averse. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest hurdles that I see, and I hate to sound ageist about it, but I'm going to.
Makes sense.
Because I work for a technology company. I think there's a technical reluctance with the technology, and it's, people will tend to use the same review platform, the same review workflows, the same process over and over and over again because that process is comfortable to them and they know ultimately it works. Mm-hmm. Your scale of what works is different from my scale of what works. And so, like scalability, repetitive, comfortable processes, like those are all things that we rely on. I think when you come to partner with us, you have the added benefit of you have the expertise of our team. We have really talented people who've done this for a long time. And we can do it the comfortable way, but we can also kind of help you bridge that gap and sort of get over those technology, that sort of leeriness of technology, and explain, like, it's not complicated. It's actually really fascinating. I mean, I will nerd out about it because I like it.
As you should.
But it's so much more accessible and understandable than I think people realize. And so we can simplify that engagement with the technology in a way that I think kind of gets you past that hurdle of your comfortable process. And, I think we can do it sort of one step at a time. We don't have to like throw you all the way into the deep end, but that's something that I think we do well is like, let's show you, and maybe not in a live setting, right? Like maybe it's a CLE or maybe it's a sales call where we can, have some examples to show them of like, this is what this can do for you. And it's very simple. It's very straightforward. And you have all of the support from us, whether it's training or tech questions or talking with a review manager about, how would I approach it? Like, how would I analyze this population?
It's somebody who's done this hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of times, right?
For all different types of cases, for all different areas of law. Like we, it's like door law for us. Like we, whatever your case is, that's what I'm going to learn about that area of law and do.
That's amazing. And I think to your point, this process was born in paper, right?
Yeah.
So like it's a very different world when you've got boxes and boxes of paper to go through, and the efficiencies and the time and the capabilities are all obviously very different. So like one of the things that I see is the law firm or the corporate attorneys still in their mind have this process in place that was born out of paper. And so I think that's one of the cool things about what we're trying to do today is like remind people that this is a completely different time. It's a different whole new world out there.
E-discovery.
It is we need to like
for electronic
maybe we need to start
reason.
capitalizing the E or something like that.
It shouldn't be lowercase. anymore.
So I love that. That's super helpful. So let's say that now we've got you in the mix. We've engaged you. What do you like to see as step one of this process when you first jump on a new matter?
I want to get on the phone with counsel right away, because a lot of times like you've shared with me and your team has shared with me, in those early conversations that you're having with a prospective client, we have a list of things that we'd like to know. And it's always like, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
Very different than my list of things.
Yeah, it's very different. And so, me getting on the phone with them right away, they actually know more than they think they do. And even if they don't have the answers to all of the questions, they have a lot to help me kind of frame what is going to be a recommended approach. What are some of the early risks that we can identify? So all of that, having that conversation early, or at least, right away. We don't always get early, but having that dialogue, and I think also just establishing the relationship. If it's a new to me attorney I haven't worked with before, I think FaceTime is really important.
It's huge, yeah.
I want them to know that I'm accessible. They can come to me. And then, just even recently with a client, one of our shared contacts, like having the opportunity to where we established that relationship early. When they got their RFPs, then they said, hey, we got the RFPs. Do you want to take a look at these? And then I had a really good consultative call with them, pointed out, some, like, here are some challenges to what you've been asked to produce, and talking about timelines and just sort of all of those things. So early and regular communication is like the number one thing.
I think that's pretty cool, and I want to kind of double click into that a little bit.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of the attorneys and partners, especially that we're used to dealing with, are used to saying, here's what I want done, and they go and tell whoever it is, their associates, their paralegals, other folks, go do this. And I think one of the things that you're really great at and your team is great at is like being part of that team that can assess what's going on, assess the documents that are coming in, and use all of your experience focused in review to look at those documents or look at the requests that are coming in and make the best determination of what route to go in conjunction with the case team. And so, like, how do we convey, or how do we get those other conversations, I guess, but like, how can we get them to look at us as a part of the team and really get involved in that? And what do you like to see happen there?
I think that first phone call is really like our best opportunity to demonstrate the value add of partnering with us. And not, at the end of the day, not everybody is going to be comfortable doing that, but we want to always be presenting that opportunity because it does make all of us more successful. And if you can kind of pass the responsibility for some of those scoping, workflow type decisions to us where they best lie, that frees up the case team to really focus on the litigation itself. You've got briefing to do, you've got depots
which is
to
what
prepare
they're great
for.
at, right?
Which is exactly, that's their wheelhouse. And so I think it is a little bit of, it's a trust exercise, of course. And, the more, like, the folks who come back and work with us again and again are the folks who have given over that, that tight grasp on all of the decision making, and ultimately the decision making still lies with the case
collaborative
team. Yes, but we want to be in a position to make some recommendations that are founded in our experience, and generally speaking, that it makes everyone's life easier. It makes timelines more reasonable. It sets clearer expectations. We have stronger relationship in place when things don't go as, icing smooth as we would like them to, because it's litigation and that doesn't always happen. But yeah, I think that first conversation is the opportunity to show the value add.
I love that. And these are tricky. I'll put you on the spot a little bit. Can you
It's
think
okay.
of an example where it went sideways and they
Oh,
didn't?
sure.
And they didn't.
No, that's never happened. What are you talking about, Jim?
Yeah, yeah. Well, give us the rundown of how sideways one got that you could maybe think of.
Sure. So I'll give two examples. So one example was, a younger attorney, real excited about the technology and had done, yeah, it's great, and had done some self-education, which I'm always in support of. But there is a difference. You're a litigation attorney. I am the director of managed review for a litigation support vendor. So we have some different experience and different perspective there. I've also been an attorney for a while and did litigation. So there's that sort of to set the stage. So, but he was excited about the technology, and so we would have these. What we were trying to have consultative conversations, and we would make these recommendations about, here's an efficiency gain in your workflow, and it's not only an efficiency gain, but it also bolsters the integrity of your review process. And he was always happy to dialogue with us, would always hear us out, and then at the end of it would ask no questions and would say, great, thank you for that, we're going to do
Okay.
whatever the other option was that he had already made up his mind before he talked to us.
Okay.
So, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's not how you want things to go, but it was, I did give credit that at least he was always willing to hear us out and dialogue with us on it.
That's good.
So sometimes, but that's an example of sometimes someone just isn't receptive to your feedback, and you can be coming from the best, most informed, most experienced position, and at the end of the day, the client's going to client. The client is going to do what the client wants to do, and as long as they're not going off the rails where they're putting something at risk, we just sort of have to say, okay,
Sure.
great,
Yeah.
Thanks
They're in
for the
charge.
dialogue, and we move on. So that's kind of that's it didn't go the way we wanted it to, but kind of at the good end of the spectrum.
Right.
And then there's the other end of the spectrum, which is the client who just makes decisions directly in opposite of your recommendation. And you just get all of that in writing. Is, at the end
That's
of
a
the
bummer.
day,
Yeah.
it's a bummer. It's, when you say and a lot of times I will say that comes down to cost. And so that is another place where having engaged us earlier in a process to design a workflow and to think through a process that was not just going to be blinders on, head down, that was your opportunity that you missed to manage the costs. And so you engaged us much later in the process when you've spent a lot of associate money that was better spent in managed review. And so your budget looks a lot smaller now than it did 6 months ago in your case. And so you're making decisions at that point driven not by the litigation, but you're being driven by the cost. And so those decisions are not necessarily always going to be in the best interest of the most integrity in your review process.
So I was going to get to cost a little later, but you brought it up and
Sure.
it made me think of a few questions.
Okay.
So we work for law firms as well as corporations, and it's a different relationship and a different process often. And so sometimes, we have to wear two hats when we talk to our clients depending on where they're at. But one of the things that I think we're really good at is generally looking at the budget and kind of working backwards from that budget to figure out where do we spend the dollars, where do we spend the time, that sort of thing. The review cost, again, how we kick this off, is the lion's share of the cost in any litigation. So how do we work with outside counsel or the folks that maybe even contract us if it's the law firm to make sure that they're not wasting money, I guess, on certain aspects of a review that are very easily and capably done by the attorneys that you work with that are great attorneys, and managing that budget and like it's tricky to get that word out there because law firms want to bill hours.
Sure.
And I get that, and we want to help them bill hours where it makes sense. We also don't want to see them waste a bunch of money at a couple $100 or more an hour looking at stuff that we can utilize technology and our good experience and our very capable moderately priced review attorneys.
Sure.
So how would you help me couch that, or how would you describe that process?
Wouldn't you rather have your associates billing their time and spending their time refining their advocacy through working on briefing, through doing case research, case law research, those types of things that are going to, like, that's where the money is, like, win the case, right? 100%. Get the repeat client. Mm-hmm. So if you can shift your sort of low-level tasks, like document review, the actual review of the documents itself is a low-level task. If you can shift that whole process to a managed review team, all attorneys, all with a required amount of experience to be doing this, and then led by even more experienced attorneys and review managers, you take all of that time that you're spending, you're having your associates and even your paralegals doing all of that type of low-level work, you could redirect to really strengthening your litigation bench. And why wouldn't you want that? Like, why wouldn't you want to build more powerhouse attorneys? You don't need to build document review attorneys. That's my job. Mm-hmm. My job is to build document review attorneys into skilled document review attorneys. Your job is to train litigators. And so,
that's huge. Yeah. And
why wouldn't you do that?
I think the interesting thing there too is, like, you and your team, you get to know a client really well. You get to understand, how do these attorneys like to run their review? What is important to them? How do they typically set up their review screens and their use of technology? And then you get to know the client's documents and what types of documents tend to be a bunch of non-responsive stuff, or where do various types of documents live, and even down to the custodian level, what custodians are typically in positions within those companies are going to have more responsive documents or more non-responsive junk and that sort of thing. And so you guys can really understand a client in depth, and then kind of explains as well what the outside counsel should be doing, but to more of a business operations level, to really understanding how to win each matter and how to position. And so it almost boils down to letting everybody do the job that they're best suited for at the price point that they're
100%.
for. That's if you don't take anything away from this whole chat, again, the cost is such a big factor in a lot of these things, that I think finding the right people to do the job is the key to a lot of this.
Well, and if you think about, if you're just talking about, law firms, we know most law firms have billable hour targets or requirements for their associates. Do more. You can handle more cases.
Right.
You can do more litigation.
Right.
If you shift some of the more administrative aspects of the case to a vendor, and you're not losing any money at the firm level. You're actually increasing your capacity to bill more because your bench is able to handle more of the direct litigation pieces of it when we're doing litigation support,
right,
which is what that's what we're for. So
yes,
yeah.
I like that. And we may come back because I had a couple other ideas that popped in, so we may touch more on that. But I wanted to move on to kind of the next step in the process. I think we've had a great kickoff call, we've had a good conversation with the case team. I think we understand what their goals are, and I know from there you talk a lot about drafting a review protocol and making sure we get that dialed in and correct. Can you spend just a couple minutes talking about the importance of that? And like one thing that I'm always amazed by, and I love this, is like you always offer to draft it, which I think is a huge value add. And so I'm immediately like, holy cow, how are you going to know all this stuff? Like, how are you going to figure this out? And so why don't you walk me through a little bit of the process of drafting the review protocol and why it's important?
The review protocol is the Bible for the review matter. So it needs to be as clear and hopefully concise as possible. We attorneys are not known for concision, right. So there's that. So it's walking that line between providing enough information for a review attorney team. They don't need to read all of the briefing that has occurred to date or all of the RFPs or the entire complaint, but being able to just distill the key aspects that we're focused on for this review, whether that is 65 RFPs or one very narrow topic that we're responding to. So I think the difference in having a review manager do it versus having an associate do it is that we're thinking through it from the perspective of both the review team and the case team, because we know how the coding palette is going to look. We know what the decision analysis, how the decision analysis needs to flow. What are the interdependencies between the different types of discrete coding that we need to apply? So all of that, it's better if we're doing it, frankly. I will say counsel generally does a solid job with it. But again, that's another place where there's not legal analysis that's being applied in the writing of the protocol. And so it's really a distillation of what do we know we're looking for. And so again, why would you want an associate spending their time doing that? They don't need to. They can hand that off to my team, and my team can run with it and turn it around and then go through however many iterations of refinement we need to. I will say usually there isn't any when we're doing it. Right. Or maybe a minor tweak, but it also gives us an opportunity up front, if we're drafting it, to frame things in a way or to ask questions of counsel in a way that they're really having a value add opportunity when they get the draft, instead of having to spend the time thinking through how to draft it, how to structure it, sort of all kind of not natural in their workflow where it is for us. And so I think that
where's somewhere that gets a little sideways. Like, give me an example of, let's say you receive a review protocol that was drafted by a very wonderful, lovely, capable associate that we probably think is great. But like, what?
I had one this week.
Yeah. What happens next when you get one and you kind of see that this doesn't really connect to the actual process of reviewing documents?
Sure. We mark it up and send it back. No, I mean, I think, like, for example, the one that we had recently was all of the things you described about the associate, 100%. Yeah. And I say that in total genuine. That really is how we feel about this particular associate. But it was like, it started out with, read these 7 additional documents. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Right. Like, no review attorney team needs that much context. Right. And you also, that's not where we want to spend review dollars. So, we mark it up and we send it back, and we always offer a conversation around that. There are always things that counsel doesn't think of because they're not, so like redactions, for example, they never put redaction instructions in a review protocol, but we need them. And we need to know, what do you want your redaction to look like? What's subject to redaction? Same thing with privilege. So they tend to think really focused on the, like, what do we need to mark that is responsive to an RFP and produce? And we're thinking whole big picture. What do you need to withhold? What do you need to privilege screen? What do you need to redact? How do you want your confidentiality displayed? All of those things, all those nuances. So we just mark it up and send it back, and then hope that next time they take us up on the offer to draft it, because they've seen our value add at that point, and then really where their value add is in any additional nuance that we might not know about the case that they can throw in, particularly like, tell me what a hot document would look like.
Yeah.
I don't know that yet because we're not in your document set.
Interesting.
And then I wanted to circle back to something that you said earlier about when we do become the experts on the document corpus. And so that's really like, no one is going to have a better understanding of what's in your document set than us. And being able to leverage that and have those types of conversations around what are we seeing, I think is really important, and also a place where it's sort of underutilized because counsel tends to wait out the timeline.
For sure.
And so getting your review going and giving more opportunity for that type of interaction with the review team, with the review management team itself, I think is a missed opportunity a lot of times to kind of refine things.
Is there more longevity and consistency with you and our team to some degree than you might see in a law firm with like associates and paralegals? I know paralegals tend to be around for a while, but
yeah, paralegals will hang out for, I mean, you get a good paralegal.
Yeah, they're going to be around.
That's your family now.
Yeah, right. That's fair. But, associates in my mind, like, and I love seeing it, when I was at the law firm, so many of the associates that I worked closely with have made partner and, continued to climb the ladder. And sometimes they do that relatively quickly, and that's the goal anyway, right? And so one of the things that I think is interesting is we tend to be able to have the same people working with, especially you and your team, with clients for many, many years, and building that consistency helps a ton.
Is there a question in there? What was your question?
You can double down on that. No, that was more of an observation.
Okay.
I love it. All right, so we've got the review protocol. It's ready to roll, right? And we're going to train our team. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about how we train our team, some of the things that we ask of them. And one thing that I always said that I don't hear you say quite as much, and it's probably because you're really good at this, and I was always a nervous Nelly when I bring a new client in, but I almost wanted to pester the case team early on with a bunch of questions. And it sounds like you really understand the protocol and what's going on, and you still have several touches with the case team early on. But I feel like you get such a level of confidence with the material and where that's going that you balance it a little bit better than maybe I would have. So talk a little bit about training our reviewers, getting them up to speed, interacting with counsel when the review is actually kicking off, because those first few days really matter.
Sure. Well, I'm really smart. So
that's good. Way smart. Listen, we just talked about this. I was a C student, so she's way smarter than I am.
I'm also humble. No.
Yeah, exactly. It's good.
So I think, so training the team, really having a solid review protocol in place is great. I love when that's not happening an hour before the review kickoff. So that is another kind of timeline gripe, I guess, or pet peeve that I have, is that a lot of times we're not getting a final review protocol until moments before the review is set to launch. That means the review team hasn't had a time to review it before getting on the call with counsel, and counsel is always going to ask, does anyone have questions? And there are never any questions,
right,
because nobody knows yet. So that just goes back to the timeline thing. So the case team is so guilty of running the clock. And I know that there are, as a former litigator, I know that there are litigation, all sorts of moving pieces of litigation. You're waiting for a ruling on something, whatever the case may be. And you don't want to spend a bunch of money if you think you're going to get summary judgment. So I do bear that in mind. But once we have the review protocol and it's dialed in, we have a phone call with the entire review team and the case team. And we spend the first half hour or so where we let counsel have the floor, talk to us about the case, tell us, why are we here? What are we reviewing for? What are the nuances in particular that they think are important? And so, what attorney doesn't like to talk about their case? And so usually pretty helpful context. It's more helpful if you're not just reading the protocol to them, because they're going to do that themselves, and the client is already going to pay them for reading it, and so you reading it to them is sort of duplicative.
It's important.
So that time is really better spent on, if counsel has spent any time with the documents, what have they seen in the documents? So the ones where we get the most value is where counsel has at least spent a bit of time with the documents and to share with us what some of the trickier calls may be, or some of those types of nuances. Pointing out things like when you have in-house counsel who also serves in a business capacity. So where are there going to be judgment calls or particular things you're going to need to pay attention to have the most accurate coding? So that's really, really helpful. And then we have our discussion with counsel, after which there usually aren't any questions quite yet. And then we let counsel go on with their day, and then we, the review managers, will spend time with the team talking through any intricacies of the coding itself, so the actual application of the coding. We'll show them the workspace. We'll talk through the coding palette with them. We'll talk through sort of our general administrative expectations, bill your time, et cetera, all of that stuff. And then we talk about our QC process, which is really important to me. It's my baby. I built our QC program.
Do tell.
So we, to the extent that time allows, we provide on every single review individual QC feedback. So there will always be sort of systemic trends in coding that we can refine, just by telling the review team as a whole, hey, this person is not privileged, so you don't need to mark this as potentially privileged. But where I am like I said earlier, I am in the business of creating skilled review attorneys. Like, that's really important to me because I want the same people on my team every time. Yeah. I know they're going to do quality work. I know they're going to be available. I know they're going to engage with me. I know they're going to be excited about it and not just treat this as a button clicking job.
Right.
So I have review attorneys who have been with Proteus longer than I have, because we treat them well, and we treat them like they're part of the team, and we give them opportunities to succeed. So we give individualized feedback on all of our reviews. We offer additional training to people. We will do one-on-one sessions with them, time and cost allowing. I also really love, on a bit of a longer review poll or a bit of a larger population, to have at least one follow-up call with counsel, where we have pulled specific examples that the review team has run into, and have an opportunity to talk through those live with counsel. And we get a lot of engagement from our review team there. Like, they will come off of mute and ask questions, and they're really thoughtful. And I think they sort of get the short end of the stick a lot of time. Like, they're very stigmatized, but the folks we work with on a recurrent basis they're doing this because they want to do it, and they're good at it. And so I like to leverage them, and I like to give them the opportunity to have the place to ask questions, and to be thoughtful about their analysis.
I think that's great, because in the handful of these that I've sat in over the years, and more in the past, but when you get a bunch of really good questions about specific documents from reviewers to the case team, I think the case team starts to develop, the attorneys start to develop a little bit more comfort with, wow, these folks are really engaged. They really understand what's going on. And it just, where those questions take place, it seems to build a better relationship long term.
100%.
I think that's great that you push that and that it's a key part of the process. And I always think it's important to touch base with the case team a few times early on so that things don't get sideways, right? You get a reviewer that maybe doesn't fully understand something and they go down the path a little bit without touching base a bunch early on. It could get, a couple of days of reviewing something wrong is tragic. So
we know there's something wrong if no one has asked questions.
Right. I love that.
We'll go looking immediately and see, we'll get right into the workspace and start running QC searches to see why isn't anyone asking questions. Yeah. And then to one of your earlier questions was around, we are able to manage a lot of the questions on the review manager end without having to escalate those to the case team. And I think that just goes back to the amount of contact and dialogue that we've had with the case team up to that point where we really can serve as that front line of defense where they don't need to be answering low-level questions about, is this the right property or is this the right report? We can provide that feedback and save them for the tougher calls.
I love that. That's smart. I want to get into the technology a little bit because I think that's really a big part of what we do, and it's super key. Is there anything that I'm missing maybe prior to jumping into that we should talk about before, like any other steps along the way that I've missed before we dive into like the use of the technology and the tools? You think we're there?
I think we're there.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, good. See, you're the expert, but
Proteus.
Yes, there we go. That's a good one.
Work with us.
Yes. So technology is super important. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of attorneys still have a mindset of you run searches, you sort, and you go. Mm-hmm. And that's just not it anymore. It's not paper, as we talked about before. So
literally makes my heart hurt.
Yeah.
When people want to do that.
So sell it to us. Pitch us. Like, why is it so important? What are all, we could talk for half a day on the advantages, but like, what are many of the advantages, and how do you tend to, explain to an attorney that wants to just do that linear process that's not the vibe anymore?
Welcome to the 21st century.
Right.
No, I would never say that unless it was, someone I had a really, really good relationship with who I knew wasn't going to be offended. No, I talked a little bit about this earlier, sort of the underutilized built-in suite of tools that are in most review platforms. So we are very platform agnostic. I've done, I don't know, within the last 2 years, I've worked in 10 or 15 different review platforms.
Wow, that's really key, though. I was gonna guess 5 or 6, but that's amazing.
Oh gosh, we'll do whatever trash you throw at us. Well, no, there's some of them are more advanced than others, but ultimately at the end of the day, we'll either make it work or we'll make a recommendation for how to put it someplace that it will work better. And we've done that before. Sure. and gotten really good results out of it. So there's a point, I'll just say briefly on that. There's a point at which your loyalty to a tool is going to cost you more money than being open to an alternate solution, because the tool that you have selected is not the best tool for what you need to do in this particular scenario. And that is another great place to engage with your team, with my team, with our data analysis management team, where we can consult on that and kind of help you weigh the cost benefit analysis really of what you're doing. So technology. So I mentioned earlier the sort of underutilized built-in tools that are available in most review platforms that will help you do more with less. And so search terms are, it's like a tricycle, right? Like everyone can ride a tricycle. It's a great first step. Everyone can ride a tricycle. My grandma can ride a tricycle. It's fine. They make old people tricycles. It's a thing. It's a thing.
Okay, all right. I forgot about the old people tricycle. No, we're keeping that in there. Sorry, Grandma.
That's fine. So, like everyone can ride a tricycle and everyone knows what a tricycle is. Everyone knows how to ride it. Everyone feels comfortable. You don't need to wear a helmet.
Right.
But you are not going to go fast. You're not going to get anywhere really.
Right.
And a lot of times, don't you just like ride the tricycle around in a circle?
You're not, you're not
So, like,
covering any real ground in
Yeah.
the tricycle.
So like you want the like, I'm not a bike person. What's the like
10 speed?
the 10 speed? Okay.
I feel like that's
so
sort of there's probably a much cooler.
there's Travis would know.
What about the e-bikes that these
Okay,
kids are all
great.
over the neighborhoods?
Yes. So I was thinking like Segway, but
Fair, close enough.
Whatever. So you need more than the tricycle, and so the built-in tools that are in relativity, like everybody knows the structural analytics tools, like we want to do email threading, we want to deduplicate,
Right.
All of those things, like standard practice. But that's not giving you any intelligence about the contents of the documents. And that's really where conceptual analytics begins to shine. And so having it's literally just click of a button. Look at it. If you're a visual person, there are visualizations that it can share with you. If you find a particular document that has relevant content in it, you can search on just that concept. You can search on just find me more documents like this. And so searching in and of itself, like maybe you will still get to the same result, but it's going to take you, your search result off a search term is going to be 800 documents. Your concept term is going to be 20 documents. And they're going to have an analytical rank assigned to them for like proximity analysis to how conceptually similar is this to what you started out with. So that's kind of step one, built in, readily available.
It's all in there already, right?
It's all in there already.
Right.
Vastly underutilized. This is my soapbox.
Yeah.
Vastly underutilized. Everyone should be doing it on every single review if you're just walking into it blind.
Now, do you think, because I know you got a lot more here, but I'm curious, the average associate, I'll say partner that is in charge of one of these doc reviews, they're not really up to date on how to use these tools. Nope. They don't use them very regularly because it just maybe doesn't come up in their day-to-day work like it does for you every single day. So I guess the advantages that you have at understanding the nuances of these are real time savers and cost savers. And you mentioned going from 800 documents down to 20. Like, is that typically what you see? And like, obviously every case is different, but like it's par for the course to be able to, I always say, stack the deck, right? You want to bring the most important documents to the front of the line and get them in front of the reviewers as soon as possible, and then get them over to the case team. Is that like, it's a massive difference maker to that level every time?
Generally, yes, especially for a larger document population. So, I mean, 800 to 20, that's a bit extreme, but generally speaking, like, yeah, the proportions are very significant. And so I think some of the reservation is always going to be around defensibility, because it's up to the producing party to be able to defend the work they did to get to the point of what did they produce. And so the whole process is part of that. And if they don't understand the process, they don't feel comfortable defending it. And so I think our opportunity to educate and to show them and to get them comfortable with it is really critical in that whole relationship to it, because you're not going to use something if you don't know how to talk about it in court or in your filings, or if you're challenged on it. And so I think just crossing that hurdle of, it is not complicated. It is not, you don't have to be a super tech savvy person to do this. The tool is going to do the tech savvy part for you, and you just get to that point to like click buttons and drill down on things. And we all know how to, I mean, everybody can shop on Amazon. You can navigate a conceptual analytics visualization.
But you're really good at it. You do it every day. And I think it can be a little overwhelming for somebody that, once every few months might have the need to do this. And so it's funny, we see a lot of different levels of tech savviness in our clients.
Sure.
And And some of them are excited about the near dupe and the email threading, which is, I like those
Right.
too. They're super cool.
I know you like that.
I'm a big fan.
You're a big fan.
Big fan.
Well, it's lit support days.
It is
I get
lit
it.
support, yeah.
I get it.
And so, and
They're very helpful.
they are very helpful. And I talk about them until I'm blue in the face, probably because I can't talk about the other stuff
Because you're comfortable
as
with
well
it.
as you can, right?
Right.
And so, like, walk us through each of the tools, getting down to the continuous active learning and those types of tools.
Sure.
And we'll get to the AI one in a second. We can put
Okay.
that one at the end. But like,
Save that one.
yeah, talk to us a little bit about how you would go through and utilize each of these tools. Because again, we're putting this out there for people that want to learn more about the process,
Yeah.
and like each tool is super important in its own way.
Okay. So structural analytics is the starting point. So that is all of your things that you love. So
Yeah.
it's email threading, it's deduplication or near deduplication.
Near dupe is the greatest. They're right
Yeah.
next to each other. You
Yeah.
can just see. It's great.
So all of those name normalization, kind of all of those things are right at the outset. That's happening on every single case, pretty much no matter what, because otherwise you're going to review every single document, and no one wants to do that. So then the next step from there is conceptual analytics. So that is a whole suite of things. It includes clustering, which I've described a little bit, which is just concept clusters based on the top 5 to 10 words that appear in subpopulations of a document set. You can visualize it either as a bubble map or as a dial, a color-coded dial, and you have the ability to just click in to each cluster or each slice of pie on the dial to drill down. And you can, what's nice about it too is you can actually just click on those documents in real time and look at them and see and just review them there.
So that one has always been one that I think, maybe me, but attorneys in general and me are like, I see these words they make sense, like the bubble word that you see on top. Can you give us an example of when somebody's clicked in there and they've been surprised at oh wow, these are all these documents really all do go together, and they made it really easy to review, one right after the other, and you can knock them all out in one shot?
I mean, me, I'm the example of that, of saying in just trying to figure out, when counsel comes to you and says, our priority is to get responsive documents out the door first. Mm-hmm. So great. Conceptual analytics is a wonderful place to start for that because at that point we've done no review. And so what do we think is going to be responsive? That is an excellent place to start and say, give me some key terms, give me some key concepts, and then I can go start poking around in there and begin to refine from there. So if counsel
could click on a bubble and it will have Walter White and a Winnebago and the words cook all in there, right? I'm thinking of the Breaking Bad. We got a demo database that has Breaking Bad documents in it. So then that would drive you all toward those very key documents, and you could quickly get through those. Mm-hmm. Love it. You
can also, so for those folks who love their searches, you don't have to stay away from searches. You can build a cluster visualization off of a search. So if you've already used your tricycle process and the one that you're comfortable with, and you've had your data team run searches and identify a potential review population, and it's always larger than anybody wants it to be, and so you want to do a little bit more refinement without having to actually commence review, you can do a cluster visualization just off of that search, to kind of help you even further refine it before putting a review team on it.
Got it. Okay. I derailed you. Now keep
No, you're
going
fine.
On some
So now you're reviewing documents, and you come across a document that you're like, this is it. This has all of the key things in it that I want. I want to see everything in my document population that is like this. It's a click of a button. It says find similar documents. And then it will display in your document viewer a list of those documents. It has an analytic rank attached to it to, proximity of conceptual relationship between the two. And then you can just click on them right from the viewer, and
Amazing.
it'll display them. So that's if you want it at a whole document level, like everything in the document is conceptually interesting to you. If you're in a document, like say you're, reading, it's a 200-page meeting minutes document from some corporate event, and you find 1 or 2 paragraphs in this whole document that you're like, oh, wow, this is the meat of what I need to get at. You just highlight those 2 paragraphs in that 200-page document, and again, click of a button, similar concept, and it will pull documents and point you to, right in your document viewer,
Amazing.
again, point you right to similar concepts in other documents. So that is a lot faster than poking around with search strings that get really cumbersome, and is the syntax in the search string correct? Are you being overly exclusive or overly inclusive? You don't have to worry about any of that when you're doing conceptual analytics, because you're telling it just this, but this whole concept.
Interesting.
So you don't have to try to manipulate search terms, which is really just looking at the text and not considering the concept. So conceptual analytics takes it to that next level.
So I had a client just the other day sent me a screenshot of a hard drive, and it had like 400 gigabytes of data on it. And
that's a lot, right?
It's a lot. It's a whole bunch, yeah.
Okay.
And we started having conversations around filtering it in ECA and using advanced tools to drill down into it. And their response was the client didn't set aside any budget to go and review these. Now, there is a world where the matter itself just isn't worth a bunch of money. That's a thing, and settling is an option. But one of the things that they had said was they were going to go back to the opposing side and start negotiating terms and search terms and different things like that. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. And so in that situation, which I did bring up a lot of the what you guys do and a lot of advanced tools, but I didn't dive into that part about show me more like this specific document or this phrase. Like, how would you coach a case team if they had that, and we could get them to agree to, again, if you're filtering this to some degree and using maybe an ECA type of model, you're not necessarily putting 400 gigs of data, in a review workspace.
No. I mean, that's the goal, is to not.
Right. As little as possible.
Yeah.
And, you got dedupes and near dupes and all that kind of stuff. But how would you go back to that attorney and say, listen, why, instead of going and spending hours and hours and hours negotiating at $400, $500, $600, $800 an hour, who knows what these guys are at, what would you suggest they do?
Your due diligence as an attorney, from my perspective, is to have the best handle on your case, and you have information available to you, and you have a partner who can help you access that information